there. Welcome to class. Welcome, welcome. I'm Miss Faust. Please make sure you have paper available and a pen or pencil. Let me check. It's looking good. It's looking good. Yes, today is a note-taking day. I wrote that up on the board here. Let me point that out to you. Right here. You will need to take some notes because you never know. There could possibly be a test down the road. Who knows? I can't foretell, but who knows? Who knows? So please make sure you do take notes. Okay? We are going to discuss two poets today. Yes, we are. They're wonderful poets. Okay, they are two African American poets. Okay, and they are somewhat connected to a literary / historical movement that we call the Harlem Renaissance. Okay, so are you ready? Are you ready for note-taking? You are. Remember, good note-takers take down names, terms, and along with definitions, dates, place names, and the like. Okay, so make sure you get all that. Okay, all right. So I'm going to go grab my paper. I'll probably be using a few sheets for to make sure I don't forget something. There's just so much to share regarding the Harlem Renaissance, especially, and then the two gentlemen. Okay, so let's start with the Harlem Renaissance. We're talking about approximately 1918 to 1935. Some scholars like to point out it mainly hits the 20s, and that's actually true, the 1920s. But it does begin in the late, teens, 1900s, the late teens there, and somewhat hit into the 30s. Okay, so again, it's an approximate. And the Harlem Renaissance is definitely a literary / historical movement, and it is a very important movement in American history. Okay, whether we're talking history or even literature and the like. So let me go through some materials here. Now, I want to backtrack to Langston Hughes. Now, Langston Hughes, in our notes, I mentioned briefly the Harlem Renaissance, that he was connected to the Harlem Renaissance. Yes, he definitely was. He was one of the sort of leaders, founders of the Harlem Renaissance in a way. Okay, so he's like, let's not say a founder, he's more like let's call him like a father of the Harlem Renaissance. So he was at the top of this movement. Okay, so don't forget, again, he was an African American. And yes, the Harlem Renaissance does focus on African Americans. That's a key in understanding the Harlem Renaissance. By the way, Renaissance means new. And you might sit there and go, I wonder where it took place. Yes, Harlem, New York. It was the biggest area. It had the most African Americans that were interested in writing, so on and so on. And we'll talk more about that shortly. Okay, even though Harlem is really, in the old days, was really a small place, it was like the focal point of this new movement, not just in history, but in literature also. Okay, very important. All right, so I want to backtrack to Langston Hughes. He was very important, as are these two gentlemen. In particular, you could say maybe Randall more so than Hayden, perhaps? Okay. All right. Let's see, what else? Yes, okay. I don't want to say, yes, Harlem, New York, we talked about Langston. Yes, he was a key figure in this movement. The history, in a sense, starts, let's put it like this. It starts post-Civil War. America, of course. After the Civil War, slaves were given the rights to be free. In other words, they were free. They were no longer slaves. Okay, the African Americans were no longer considered to be slaves to their masters and the like. Yes, there were some African Americans who stayed with their masters, who had loyalty toward the masters because they had been treated decently. Okay, so they stayed with. But majority of African Americans migrated. In other words, they moved from the south. We're talking, this is the Great Migration, which is from the south to the north, okay, of African Americans, formerly slaves. Okay, so they moved. Obviously, going north, they were somewhat stuck, namely jobs. Okay, so what was good was in the north, you had a lot of places, businesses that were run by white Americans, and they were willing to hire the African Americans. Of course, jingle there, little sound effect. Of course, the pay was somewhat lower, but at least they would have jobs. So they did have that possibility of getting jobs in the north. We're talking like New York, the Harlem area, Chicago especially, okay? So they had that chance, so they would be able to find shelter, in other words, housing, and they would be able to raise their family, okay? And they would be able to get education for their kids and the like. So there was that great migration post-Civil War from the south to the north. All right, now, how do I want to say this? Some of these African Americans were good in dance, good in singing, good in making jokes, okay, good in writing. And they thought to themselves, well, why can't I play the piano? Why can't I write a poem? Okay, so that's where we get the Harlem Renaissance. Yes, it is a new movement. Okay, it does, like I said, they somehow ended up in Harlem, this particular group of African Americans that wanted to showcase what they could do. Like anyone else, they could sing. They could be funny. They could dance. They could play instruments. They could write. They could even open up publishing companies, which is when we get to Randall, okay? So they wanted to show the world. They wanted to showcase to the world what they too could do. And that is where we get this movement. That's the literary part. They started showing we could write. We could sing. And they started doing that. In other words, the Harlem Renaissance is all about the African American identity. We could say that, okay? It's all about the identity. Who are we? Okay? So in the Harlem Renaissance, you would start having like nightclubs. One of the most famous nightclubs is the Cotton Club, where you would have some wonderful singers, musicians. Again, these are African American, places that are led by African Americans, but who would come to visit? Who would come to enjoy the music, the jokes, and so on? Yes, they were other people. In other words, white Americans would come and they would have their drinks there, they would have their food there, they would enjoy what these other wonderful people could do. People such as Louis Armstrong, okay, Cap Calloway, musicians, all right, singers such as Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday. One moment. And she really was one of the best in those days. This is a picture. Hold on. I'm sorry. I got stuck there. This is a picture of Billie Holiday. So she was, of those days, one of the best they had, one of these great singers. So if you ever have a chance to, you should listen to something by Billie Holiday or Bessie Smith, another fantastic singer of those days. Okay, Billie Holiday. All right. So we had people like that, including like Langston Hughes. They showcased what they could do. Okay, so you had writers, singers, dancers, comedians, musicians, all African Americans, letting the world see and hear and read what they could do. Do you have any questions about that? And what is so neat, let me hold on here. I think I've got to the Harlem Renaissance actually opened the doors for our modern writers. Example, one of our great modern writer, a poet, Rita Dove, was actually instructed at ASU years ago. It opened the doors for someone like her, okay, to showcase what she could do. Amazing, huh? Okay. Any questions about Harlem Renaissance? So, people's names such as Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, Cap Calloway, Bessie Smith are names you would connect with the Harlem Renaissance. What's really neat is years ago when we had President Obama, he used to showcase on special nights people such as, he had one night African American singers, and so he showcased the music of them. I'm trying to remember. Queen Latifah sang Bessie Smith's music. Okay. So yes, even to this day, we have that. All right. So yes, it was interesting to hear Queen Latifah singing Bessie Smith. She sounded just like her. This is fantastic. Okay, so if you have a chance, listen to Billie Holiday and Miss Smith. All right, let's do Dudley Randall and Robert Hayden. So we've got Dudley Randall, 1914 to 2000. Okay, they are African Americans, as I said. With Randall, we are talking about, let me get my notes together so in case I don't miss anything. Yes. So yes, he was actually a poet and he was a publisher. He was a founder of his own publishing company. That's what I was trying to say before. Then in the Harlem Renaissance, yes, African Americans were able to showcase the fact that they too could open up a publishing company. So he opened up what they call the Broadside Press, and that made it possible for other African Americans to showcase their work. Okay, so he was responsible for various writers. I can't find yes. People such as Gwendolyn Brooks. Okay. No, right. Okay, such as Nikki Giovanni, another fantastic poet. Writers such as Alice Walker. So if you're a fan of Alice Walker, okay, he's responsible for that. He made that possible. He tends to identify with Africa, so a lot of his work, it's again having to deal with African American, especially coming from Africa, the continent, the country, okay, and the like. So he has that identification more or less with Africa. So you can understand that his work will be with African Americans and how they're treated, and so on and so on and so on. Let's see what else. Okay, let's see. Showcase and publish, right? Post the risk. Yes. So yes, I showcased, yes, writers that could not find anywhere a place to showcase their work. He did it. All right. Let's see. Okay. He was influenced. They had another African American poet named County Cullen was his influence. So he worked in various places and the like. So yes, he was a poet, a publisher. He was an editor and obviously the founder of his own company, and out of Detroit. Okay, and the like. Let's see. They say that he'll be definitely remembered for his poetry. Okay, going on to Robert Hayden, another fantastic poet. I want to make sure I share some tidbits about both. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. His dates, 1913 to 1980. Again, if you're going, so that was fast. Please put a pause to the video and get the information, because, like I said, you never know what's down the road. Okay, let's see about him. He portrays he's a poet, okay, more or less a poet. African American, as I already said. portrays portrays both the history and contemporary experiences of African Americans in his poems. Okay, so that's his focus. With Randall, again, identifying with Africa, and Hayden portrays the lives and the like. Okay, so somewhat similar. He also, he had a very, how do I want to say this? Had a very challenging, very difficult childhood. And depending what you're reading by him, some of his poems, he's not the character in the poem, but in some of his poems you get a little bit of idea that he truly can understand what the character, the speaker at times, is going through, because his own childhood, he had a traumatic childhood. Yes, it was not a pleasant childhood that he had to go through. So yes, he had many different kinds of jobs. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. He, in a way, he took his cue from the writers of the Harlem Renaissance, such as Langston Hughes. Okay. Again, very much an interesting writer. So he definitely focuses on the plight of the African American, politically, and his everyday plight. Okay. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. They are two fantastic poets. I think you'll enjoy them. Harlem Renaissance, again, is an important part of American history. So it's not just history, it's also literary. Okay. Now, your assignment, as I said, make sure you have notes. And then please make sure you jot this down. I need you to read Dudley Randall's Ballad of Birmingham. It's a very famous poem. Okay. We will discuss highlights again of both, if I can talk, both poems next class period, so be prepared to take some more notes. So please read Ballad of Birmingham by Dudley Randall and Robert Hayden's Those Winter Sundays. Okay? So, Ballad of Birmingham, Those Winter Sundays, two well-known poems of these wonderful poets. And I need you to copy and answer this. For Randall's poem, I need you to answer what words or phrases convey an image. In other words, what words or phrases does Randall use in his poem that make you see an image? You can see it, or feel it, or hear it. Remember, imagery is also about, it's all about using your senses. The more senses you can use, the better the writing will be. Okay, so convey an image. Hayden's poem, What Did the Father Do Every Sunday? Okay, so you'll find out about a character who is the father. What does he do every Sunday? Also, I would like you to answer, what animal makes you nervous? I know some people say snakes. I see a snake and I'm like, ah! Okay. So what animal makes you nervous? What animal makes you nervous? And again, be sure to listen to some of her wonderful music. One of her great songs is Stormy Weather. You should listen to that. It's fantastic. It will give you an idea of the kind of music, singing of the Harlem Renaissance. Again, 1918, 1935. Yes, indeed. The 20s especially. Hit hard, the 20s. Okay. All right. Otherwise, this is due today. This, along with the answer to that question, and be prepared to go over the poems next class period. So please make sure you send this to me as soon as possible today. And I wish you a fantastic day. Till next time. Bye-bye.